come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. May we shine a light of love. May we shine a light of love. With every thought, with every step we take, may we shine a light of love. May we shine a light of hope. May we shine a light of hope. With every thought, with every step we take, may we shine a light of hope. This morning, before I share our Time for All Ages, I want to thank Wendy for mentioning RE Sunday on the 23rd. It's going to be so much fun. And if you have children and they're interested in being part of the service, please email me. And if they're interested in being part of the music for the service, we are meeting Wednesday, the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th from 6 to 7. To have kids do music. So please come. There's also tomorrow evening an informational meeting that Miriam is hosting about the Modern Band / Children's Choir program that she's looking forward to launching. So if you have children in first grade and above, please check it out. It's in your weekly email. There's a Zoom link, and it's going to be so much fun and good to learn about. All right, today for Time for All Ages, I have a special story to share with you. This is called Seven Blind Mice. You may know the song that's Three Blind Mice, but this is entirely different. So hope you enjoy Seven Blind Mice. One day, 7 blind mice were surprised to find a strange something by their pond. "What is it?" they cried, and they all ran home. On Monday, Red Mouse went first to find out. Now from this picture, you may be able to tell what it is, but don't spoil the surprise, okay? "It's a pillar," he said. No one believed him. On Tuesday, Green Mouse set out. He was the second to go. "It's a snake," he said. "No," said Yellow Mouse on Wednesday. "It's a spear." He was the third in turn. The fourth was Purple Mouse. He went on Thursday. "It's a great cliff," he said. Orange Mouse went on Friday, the fifth to go. "It's a fan," he cried. "I felt it move." The sixth to go was Blue Mouse. He went on Saturday and said, "It's nothing but a rope." But the others did not agree. They began to argue. A snake, a rope, a fan, a cliff. Until on Sunday, White Mouse, the seventh mouse, went to the pond. When she came upon the something, she ran up one side and she ran down the other. She ran across the top from end to end. "Ah," said White Mouse, "now I see. The something is as sturdy as a pillar, supple as a snake, wide as a cliff, sharp as a spear, breezy as a fan, stringy as a rope, but altogether the something is an elephant." And when the other mice ran up one side and down the other, across the something from end to end, they agreed. Now they saw too. So this is the mouse moral. Knowing in part may make a fine tale, but wisdom comes from seeing the whole.
Today's centering words come from Mary Oliver. The poem is called I Worried. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing and gave it up, and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who will wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, won't you come on down? Oh, sisters, let's go down, down in the river to pray.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, As I went down in the river to pray, thinking about the good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, won't you come on down? Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, won't you come on down? Oh, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, won't you come on down? Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray.
This community of care is created through our work and time together, our commitment to one another. This is our covenant, to walk together in loving fellowship, to share our hopes and values. As we pass both these live and virtual baskets, we thank you for your generous gifts which support the work of this religious community and Unitarian Universalism in the world at large. And as we take this time and listen to the beautiful sound of our choir, who's starting to be able to share their voices together again, wake now my senses. The invitation is to just take a little bit of time to think about what is it that you really do pay attention to in your own life. And are you paying attention to those things that bring you joy and peace and comfort? Or are you paying attention to the worries and the stressors? And if you need to think about paying attention to some of the joyful things instead, just take a little bit of time to think about that as we pass these baskets and listen to Wake Now Our Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join transformed by our care.
Hey, Wendy, we can't hear you at all on Zoom. No, we can't hear you at all. I see your mouth moving. No. Where's the microphone on your laptop? Is there something covering it? No. We do hear like a clicking though. Maybe, no. Let me come. Where's my mask?
Oops, that I need.
You're back on.
Oh, I'm back. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Unplugging.
Whatever you did.
Nothing changed. I promise everybody I didn't do anything.
But you're
you
back
can all
on.
hear. You can all hear me now. Okay. Well, Joel and Karen, welcome to the very first virtual auction sermon. It can't possibly all go perfectly. So, okay, I guess Chelsea will just need to yell at me if I go off again, but as of right now, you can all hear me, right?
Correct.
Yay.
And I'm really good at yelling at you, so you know, this will
Okay.
go well.
All right. So I want to start the sermon today with some wisdom words that I'm sure that we've all heard before. It's a story about a Cherokee grandfather having a conversation with his grandson. And one evening, an old Cherokee grandfather told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle is between two wolves inside of us all. One is evil. It is anger, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence." The grandson thought about it for a moment and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf wins?" The old man simply replied, "The one that you feed." And as we get into this sermon about inattentional blindness, I am going to share I'm going to do a little experiment with all of us that we get to do together. So everybody's been at the carnival where they have the coin under the cups. So I'm going to invite us to do that little experiment, and it's going to start out simple with just 3 cups, and you're going to have to pay attention to the Hershey Kiss, and then they're going to add more cups, and we're going to see how many people can pay attention to the Hershey Kiss. So
this is the shell game. I'm going to hide this Hershey's Kiss under this cup, and the object is for you to pay attention and follow along and try to guess which cup the Hershey's Kiss is under at the end. Try to guess if it's in the left cup, the middle cup, or the right cup. Let's check the left cup. The middle cup. If you guess the middle cup, you got it right. So now we're gonna make it a little more complicated. I've added an extra pair of hands and I've added additional colors here. But that's only to distract you from the pink cups. The pink cups will always have, one of the pink cups will always have the Hershey Kiss underneath. So let's get started. So can you guess where the Hershey Kiss is? Right again. You're so good at this.
all right, can you guys all still hear me? Okay, so how many of you were able to find the Hershey Kiss? Okay, how many of you saw the duck? Okay, I saw, it looks like Robert raised his hand, Richard raised her hand. I can't see everybody. How many of you noticed the 5th hand? Oh, Penny, I see Penny raising her hand and Robin raising her hand. And then how many of you noticed that the cups changed color? Okay, Robin keeps raising her hand, Robert keeps raising his hand, and Karen has raised her hand, but that doesn't surprise me because since this was her topic, my sense is she was ready to try to be surprised. But I showed this a few years ago, and I knew that there was going to be a twist, right? So I kept waiting for there to be a twist, and I still missed it. And you know, I saw the duck, but then I didn't see the hand, and then I didn't see I didn't even notice that they changed colors. Um, so that is, uh, you know, kind of what we were talking about. What we pay attention to is really what matters. And so according to information theory in Encyclopedia Britannica, the human body sends 11 million bits per second to the brain for processing. Yet the conscious mind seems to be able to process only 50 bits per second. So think about that. We have 11 million bits coming in, and we're only processing 50 of those. So given the discrepancy in how much data is available versus how much our brains take in, how do we decide which information to bring into our own conscious awareness? So I asked you how many have played the game with the Hershey Kiss Cup. And like I said, even though I'd seen the video a few years ago, I still was fooled because I was paying attention to the pink cups and trying to figure out where the Hershey Kiss would be. And so this phenomena is called inattentional blindness. And according to Wikipedia, inattentional blindness or perceptual blindness, and sometimes called inattentive blindness, occurs when an individual fails to perceive an unexpected stimulus in plain sight, purely as a result of a lack of attention rather than any visual defects or deficits. And according to the article, What is Unintentional Blindness on a website called verywellmind.com, they write that the term inattentional blindness was first coined by psychologists Arian Mack and Irvin Rock, who observed the phenomenon during their perception and attention experiments. Because this inability to perceive, this sighted blindness, seemed to be caused by the fact that subjects were not attending to the stimulus, but instead were attending to something else. We labeled this phenomena inattentional blindness, and they explained this in their book, Inattentional Blindness. They went on to say, one of the best known experiments demonstrating inattentional blindness is the invisible gorilla test, carried out by Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons. And in this experiment, researchers asked participants to watch a video of people tossing a basketball, and the observers were told to count the number of passes or to keep track of the number of throws or bounces. Afterward, the participants were asked if they had noticed anything unusual while watching the video. Across all of the tests, approximately 50% of the participants reported seeing nothing out of the ordinary. But in reality, something odd had happened. In some instances, a woman dressed in a gorilla suit strolled through the scene, turned to the camera, thumped her chest, and walked away. While it may seem impossible that the participants missed such a sight since their attention was focused elsewhere and on a demanding task, the gorilla basically became invisible. And one of the reasons that so many people often miss the gorilla, so to speak, is simply because the stimulus did not fit into their idea of what a basketball game is supposed to be like. A gorilla showing up in the middle of a basketball game is unlikely to happen in a real world setting. so we are less likely to notice it. It is essentially ruled out as a component that will help you better understand or carry out the task at hand. That said, while we do sometimes fail to miss things in the world around us, we are generally pretty good at noticing information that is relevant to us, such as a car speeding towards us or a deer about to jump out in front of the trees, um, so that when we're prepared, we see it more often. And so I know that on some level, I pay more attention to the little details regarding the emotions of the people around me than I do to their physical attributes. I'm sure that other people are just the opposite. And I have talked a little bit about this before in previous sermons, but before Karen and Joel let me know that there is actually there's a title for it, Inattentional Blindness. And a few years ago, I was telling the story about being in college, and for some reason I can't remember, I needed an image of a cow. And in my mind, cows are brown. And so I had this image of a brown cow in my head. And I was lucky that in the fact that for some reason my brother, who was an amazing artist, was in town. So I asked him to paint me a brown cow. And you can imagine my surprise and concern when he started the picture using pink and then yellow and then purple and then white. And I said, no, I need a brown cow. And he just ignored me and he kept on painting. And in the end, I had this amazing, real life looking cow that I was able to use. However, I don't know if he actually ever used the color brown. And this was a huge insight for me when I realized for the first time that a brown cow isn't actually brown. He, as an artist, knew that all along. However, my head exploded in a good way to have such an in your face shift in my conscious awareness of the world around me. And to this day, I still don't see the colors within the colors. A brown cow still looks brown to me. But his artist eyes could and do see so much more than what my non-artist perception takes in visually. But we're different in that way because just as I don't see what he sees when he visually looks at the world around him, on some level, I see a lot of things that he doesn't see. I don't pay attention to the visual world, but I pay attention to stimuli in a very different way. Occasionally, he stares at me in the same kind of dumbfounded way that I stared at him that day when I point out emotional or relational dynamics between people that are glaringly obvious to me that he has no idea about. And some of the things that I notice about interpersonal dynamics are so obvious to me that I assume that everybody can see them too. And I have learned that many times this is not the case. So when I'm working with people, I will occasionally take the time to name for me what is obvious. Oftentimes, I'm surprised to learn that my observations actually weren't that obvious to the people I was talking to, just like all of the various colors weren't obvious to me in the cow. And so, how we move in this physical world is in large part based on what we choose to pay attention to, both consciously and unconsciously. And with 11 pars per second, the possibilities really are endless. And that can seem a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I think it is simply about taking the time to consciously acknowledge what we are paying attention to and what phenomena we might be missing. Nobody can take it all in at the same time, and it becomes exhausting when we try to do that. And that said, in a healthy society, we need different people to pay attention to different things. Doctors pay attention to the body in a way that lawyers don't. But lawyers pay attention to the law in a way that an engineer never will. But the engineer pays attention to the structure of a building that keeps us safe and alive so that I can pay attention to the words that I write. And I pay attention to the words and the world around us so that I can hopefully have something of value and meaning to offer on Sunday mornings. But we have this beautiful place to come to on Sunday mornings because people like Joel and Gary paid attention to the walls and the support beams and could see what this old credit union building could become with a few little dynamic changes. You can hear me today, hopefully, because John paid attention to how the wires in this sound podium right here can go through the ceiling into the sound booth in the back of the sanctuary. And we feel like we're in sacred space because Peg and the aesthetics team paid attention to what color the walls should be, and Cheryl Conrad paid attention to how to paint them. And for the most part, we know each other's names because Arlita understood the value of hospitality and paid attention to who was and was not wearing a name tag. And so it all comes together because we are all doing our own part. But our parts are not the same. And that is the beauty of society. We aren't meant to see and experience the world in the same way. And each and every one of us has a very valuable and important role in bringing that all together. And with 11 million pars per second needing to be processed, we have to share the burden. No one can possibly take it all in. We need each other. And so the key is that this is so beautiful, not because we're all paying attention to the same things, but because we're not paying attention to the same things. And when we all are paying attention to that which matters most to us, it comes together in a beautiful whole. And, you know, in 2019, I was paying attention. We had a lot going on in you know, the world in the last few years. But one of the things that I paid attention to in 2019 at the end of the year were some impeachment hearings, you know, that were going on. And I was paying attention to Mary Jovanovic and her testimony. And it was really interesting because what I paid attention to was not what she was wearing or what color her eyes were, but I was paying attention to her calm demeanor. And I was wondering what it must be like to have the eyes of the world on you. And I was thinking, what is she thinking? And how is she feeling? And How did she prepare? At what point did she decide to stand up and use her voice? And what was that like? Was she scared? Was she angry? Did she pray? Was there a point in her life in the past 2 years when she said to herself out loud or to a loved one, I must stand up and use my voice? Those were the questions I was wondering about, the details I was paying attention to. And I was watching congressional representatives, both Democrat and Republicans, questioning her. Were they scared? Was Jim Jordan really as angry as he appeared, or was it just a show? What were his dinner conversations at home? How did he prepare his questions? Did he pray? Those are the things I was interested in. Why are all of the people in power making decisions that they're making right now? Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it a desire for power? Or is it something more basic and simple as a case of insecurity or wanting to be liked by the bully? I ask all these questions because I figured if I can figure out what people are paying attention to, I can begin to understand where they're coming from. Is the anger really anger? Or is it actually fear being disguised as anger? Is it really fear of immigrants, or is it possibly fear of being targeted by a bully? In other words, what is the thought behind the thought behind the thought? Or as Neil Donald Walsh in his book Conversations with God says, what is the sponsoring thought? And many times angry people aren't actually angry. They're scared, or they're hurt, or they're lonely, or they're grieving. And maybe if we start to pay attention and address the issues underneath the issues underneath the issues until we get to the ultimate cause, we can begin to bring some healing into this world. And so, with that said, I want to finish today by actually flipping the concept over a little bit and throwing out one more thing to think about. In the energy healing classes I've been taking over the last few years, one of the classic books we were asked to read was a book called The Art of Spiritual Healing by a man named Joel Goldsmith, who was a very renowned healer in the early 1900s, and he had a lot of success working with people who were very, very sick with tuberculosis before they had come up with a medical model to help people with that. And in his book, he used the concept of consciousness and he turned it on his head. And his premise, his healing premise, was that true healing occurs not by paying attention to the ailment and focusing on that, but when you get to the point in your consciousness that the illness does not exist in the realm of the true perfection of God, then it becomes a non-entity and the person is healed. And he wrote, healings take place not through the intervention of some God, but through arriving at a state of consciousness in which the sin, disease, and death have no reality. A consciousness which no longer battles these forms of discord and no longer tries to get rid of them. Complete, total spiritual healing is the non-recognition of the reality of the condition. And I throw this out today just as something to think about because that could be a whole sermon in itself, because I am not saying just stick your head in the mud and pretend something doesn't exist and it will go away. But if you get to the much, much, much deeper spiritual principle of what he was talking about, that you put yourself into an awareness where there is nothing but perfection, then the illness goes away. That's a sermon in and of itself, but I want to throw that out as we think about what are we paying attention to? What do we maybe want to stop paying attention to? And are there some things in our lives that we may want to bring back into our lives and start paying attention to the beauty and the joy and the sunsets and the flowers and letting go of some of the anger and the fear and the resentment? And if we start paying attention to what we're paying attention to, might our lives change just a little bit? And then we become aware of some of our inattentional blindness, which I think never ever goes away. Because, like I said, when we have that much stimuli coming in, we can't ever pay attention to it all, but we can pay attention to what we're paying attention to. And so, with that, I'm going to allow us to unmute ourselves and just invite people to talk a little bit about if there have been times in your life when there has been some inattentional blindness that you either became aware of or are just becoming aware of right now. So the way that we do this is, if you would like to say something, go ahead and unmute yourself and I'll call on you. And if you don't want to say anything, then stay muted. So I believe you all have the opportunity to do that now. So does anybody have an example of inattentional blindness that they'd like to share with you? Liz, go ahead.
There was this guy on Facebook. He was giving a talk, kind of like some kind of a blog type thing, and I looked at him.